President Trump's domestic agenda is now facing a new and major setback. This is on the budget and some of the things that Trump and the MAGA crowd want to ram through the budget, which is, despite everything going on, obviously, in the world, still Donald Trump and the Republican Party's greatest priority, getting this done somehow. And yet, as you're going to see in this breaking news, Republican senators are dealing with the setback in real time today.
Well, I mean, as you know, it's pretty frustrating, right?
Some of the stuff that she's striking, I have some real concerns.
Everything is challenging, but they're all speed bumps.
This is a very fluid situation.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised.
Well, this is a setback. I mean, I'm not going to play act. I didn't see this one coming.
A setback they didn't see coming, and because it's happening so fast in real time in a place where there are cameras rolling and journalists there to get the reactions, as you hear, some of them just being what sounds like honest about their disappointments. Others referring to the fact that in politics we're so used to what the senator there, Senator Kennedy, a Republican, called play acting, that sometimes you just say, it's really bad. So that's the headline, big picture, before you get into all the legal parliamentary mumbo jumbo. What's happening is, under Donald Trump, Republicans are trying to do what he does in so many arenas, which is test things to the breaking point. Now, this isn't one where it's necessarily some alleged crime or insurrection, but that maximalism, that effort to ram things through has run into a type of wall. And the things they want to run through are also very much opposed, not only throughout the country, but even among some conservatives. We are talking about cutting health care in ways that would affect many people, including in red states. Some Republicans worried the cuts would also hurt their election chances when people figure out how much health care they're cutting before the next election. And why? Why do you need to do this right now? Again, there's a lot of problems in this country and abroad. Why would you scale back, for example, health care, including in red states? Well, part of the reason is they want to give massive tax cuts to multimillionaires and billionaires. So that means when you total it all together, they would cut, if they got this budget through, $900 billion in health care out of Medicaid, and they would, of course, grow the deficit. But today, here's the news coming out of Washington. A ruling that half of those Medicaid cuts break Senate rules. And the Senate is still, even in this MAGA era where we hear that nothing matters, governed by a kind of a referee, a parliamentarian who enforces the rules. You cannot just jam anything through a tax or budget bill. The parliamentarian is the Senate's referee, their official advisor on rules and procedures, as the conservative-leaning Wall Street Journal explains. Quote, lawmakers are wary of setting rule-breaking precedents that a future majority could exploit. In a way, you can think of this just like any game. The senators are the athletes, and they're competing, and they go back and forth, and they have a battle. But there's still a referee they have to listen to. And it's almost funny sometimes when you watch a big athlete who seems in stature and stamina, certainly in fame and fans, bigger than the referee. That's what it's like. These are powerful senators. They have all kinds of big powers, but they got to deal with the ref. Just like a player in the NFL who has to follow rules enforced by their referee, or if you follow this, parliamentarian. And sometimes the person who has that power over you, over at least the rule, can be, to use a famous Seinfeld term, someone who is going to tell you yes or no and almost lord it over you. In that extreme example, the joke was someone who enforced the rules of getting special soup so strictly, they started calling him the soup Nazi. Now, those are examples from sports or life where rules matter. And in this case, the ref is the Senate parliamentarian, someone who we almost never refer to by name or see their face, but they're supposed to do this job based on the rules, not on partisan calculations or what Donald Trump wants or what he tweets or puts on his social platforms. It's Elizabeth McDonough, and she's made this ruling. And the takeaway is, even as Trump and the Republicans try all sorts of shenanigans, this time here in the Senate, some rules still matter. This Senate official is blocking Republicans from using the bill to also try to fit in other stuff that has nothing to do with the budget. That's the basic line, and it's a nonpartisan line, that you want government to work, which means you don't want secret tricks and ploys. So they wanted to weaken the federal courts to undercut how things work, which is ironic given that this is a rule that stops them from sneaking in a non-budget item that would undercut other rules. The takeaway is Trump's in trouble because he wanted to pass this by Independence Day, that timeline in jeopardy. Fox News has polling showing most Americans oppose this, a 20-point gap. I'm going to leave that on the screen for a minute and remind you that whether people like it or not, Donald Trump won by about 1.5 points. So when he's losing here by 20 points compared to last November, that's a heck of a lot of Trump voters, conservatives, Republicans who have heard about this budget bill. They know it cuts health care. They know it gives tax cuts to the rich, and they oppose it. Now, Trump held a White House event to try to rally support for this embattled bill. Democrats have warned that while Trump talked about a lot of issues last year to get that 1.5 point victory, they warned this today, what he's being busted on and limited on, is exactly what he would do.
Donald Trump would sell this country for $1.
This guy wants to throw tens of millions of people off of the health insurance that they have.
Throwing tens of millions of Americans off of health care and cutting Social Security and Medicare.
He is going to make sure that taxes are cut for the millionaires, the billionaires, and the giant corporations.
He wants the middle class to pay the price for another huge tax cut that would mostly help him and his rich friends.
Those were claims. They were assertions. It's how politics works. And some might have heard them and thought, gosh, well, they don't want him to win for any number of reasons. Maybe they're exaggerated. Well, now we're here. The facts matter. People have to live with democracy and what happened in the voting. But all those claims you just heard, while they may have been offered in a campaign context, are being proven true. And compare that to what we just saw, that even in Fox polling, by 20 points, people oppose the stuff that was warned about. And that's not all. The Trump bill grows the deficit. Republicans showing a complete fiscal irresponsibility here. There's a special office that's nonpartisan which prices this stuff and saw it was going to be over $2 trillion juicing the debt in the initial assessment. Then they go through in more detail. These are long bills and it's a process. And the number only has gone up. Now, by late June, we're learning it's over $3 trillion added to everything here, according to CBO. And that means Republicans are the party bringing you exploding deficits, exploding debt, something that obviously crushes, breaks, violates their long-standing vows and talk about how to run a budget.
Most troubling of all, the unsustainable trajectory of government spending is accelerating our nation toward a ruinous debt crisis.
I'm very worried about the debt.
The single biggest threat to our country, both in the short term and the long term. We now have a debt of $16.4 trillion.
The real problem here is the debt and the lack of a credible plan to deal with the debt.
The dangerous addiction to deficit spending.
You're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution.
If that's the case, then they are all part of the problem. Some of those individuals are now part of the Trump administration, like Marco Rubio. Others, like McConnell, have been overseeing this exploding debt. Either they're lying now or they were lying then, but you can't have it both ways. And it's important that people understand this because if you believe as a society we can use facts to govern ourselves in a democracy, that's the big idea, then you can absorb this information and keep that in mind the next time it's a debate or a campaign about deficits, budgets, what the priorities are. Here, the priority is grow the debt in order to pay back or pay off really rich people who don't need this money to survive or get by. One report here noting that despite railing against the deficit spending, the deficit somehow managed to increase every time Republicans are in charge. And the bill also, to be clear, if passed, will affect so many millions of people because of health care and because of the way the budget works, that it's not, unlike some other Trump issues where he says, oh, he's going to go after California or go after blue areas and not red, which, of course, betrays your oath to help everybody as the president of all people in the United States. But this one will hit red states, clearly. It slashes the safety net. Many Republicans know that. Many Republican voters are on it. And here are some of the ads that actually note from Democrats how big MAGA voices like Bannon are also sounding the alarm on what the bill really does.
Medicaid, you got to be careful because a lot of MAGAs on Medicaid. I'm telling you, if you don't think so, you are dead wrong.
Now, that's a political take on the substance. Bannon's not saying he supports more health care coverage for everyone, but he's saying a lot of people are already on this health care coverage. And this bill, as it was originally designed by Trump and his Republican enablers, goes after that, would kick many millions, up to 9 by the estimates, of people off health care they're already using. Bannon says that's bad politics. A lot of other people, Democrats and some Republican legislators, say it's bad policy. We see this breakdown in the Congress where a process that everybody knows, the legislators are supposed to know how this works. They pushed it to the max, and it hurt the Republicans, apparently, in being told by the ref, you can't get all this stuff in. What does that tell you, and what do you think about just on the deficit alone, what this bill would do?
Well, right now, it's absolutely clear. They have a bill that is going nowhere. They don't want to expand the deficit. The deficit hawks among the Republicans are very, very adamant about that. There are some that don't want to cut too much into Medicare and Medicaid, and we're talking about both Medicare and Medicaid. So they are a little bit at an impasse. Yeah. Now, the question is, what do? They have a parliamentarian who has told them that in order to avoid the filibuster and get this through just on a majority vote, they are going to have to drop several provisions. I think if I were a betting person right now, I would say that parliamentarian has a limited number of days left in her job.